Hello, I'm Dawn Hollis, and this is part of my series of 5-minute ideas designed to help you work as productively on your PhD thesis as possible. In this video, I'm going to talk about how writing can sometimes feel like an intimidating activity, and ways you can change this by incorporating it into your regular working practices. I want to start by saying that writing, the act of taking your ideas and transmitting them to the page, is hard. It may be that writing is an activity that you fear and dread and unconsciously do whatever you can to avoid. If so, this is very common. I find writing hard. Your supervisor probably finds writing hard. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Writing, especially writing something like a PhD thesis, is a challenging activity that requires a lot of mental energy. At the same time, I think some of the preconceptions we have about writing as academics and students can make writing harder than it needs to be. In academic work and study, writing is often treated as an activity which is separate from the bread and butter of research, such as reading or collecting data or doing experiments. It is set apart from the rest of the research process. It's the thing you do once you have your results and once you know what you're going to say about them. This means that writing assumes an intimidating status. You have to be ready before you can write. It also means that writing becomes an activity that we only engage in on a semi-regular basis. You hear people talk about writer's block, but you never hear people talk about reader's block. Because after all, reading is something that we do on a daily basis, from reading bad novels to complex research papers in our field. So, writing is an intense activity, but is one we tend to only engage in intermittently. That's sort of like wanting to be a sprint runner, but not training at all in between races. Instead, I think one way to make writing easier is to think of writing as a muscle. It's a muscle that has to work especially hard when you're drafting portions of your thesis, which means you should try to build up that muscle by using it regularly and by taking opportunities to write in less high-pressure contexts. One such opportunity is to write as you read. Try to get into the habit, after reading a particularly interesting book or article, of spending 5 minutes or so just writing down a paragraph summarising your thoughts about it. Personally, I find that quite often when I'm reading and taking notes, I have a lot of reactions to the text at hand that don't make it into my notes. These can include things like the new ideas it sparks for me about the topic of my research, or my assessment of the quality of the article, or whether it supports or contradicts the other material I've been looking at. These are the kind of thoughts that you often think you'll just remember later. But when you're dealing with a large volume of material, you often do forget or find it hard to recapture the lucidity of these initial responses. So writing after reading can not only help make writing a habit, it can also help preserve thoughts that you might want to include in your chapter draft. Free writing is a technique that I find incredibly valuable, both for making a habit out of writing and for improving your general concentration and productivity. Free writing is more or less what it says on the tin, writing about whatever you want as freely as you want. You'll never show your free writing to anyone else, so you can write as messily as you like. No need to worry about paragraphs or even about punctuation if you don't want to. I usually free write at the start of a working day or working session. I open an empty note in Evernote, which is the program I use for taking notes, and I set a timer for 5 minutes. I then just splurge onto the screen all of the different things that have the potential to pull me out of work, the things I'm worrying about, the other tasks I have to do in that day. During those 5 minutes, I do not stop typing, even if the thoughts that are coming out are completely inane. For me, it's a bit like writing a very disorganised journal entry or unloading to a good friend. I also tend to write about what I'm planning on doing for the day and what worries I have about the work I'm doing. Sometimes the stream of consciousness turns into a sort of self-coaching, in which I talk myself through my general life worries or come up with solutions to work-related conundrums. You can use free writing whenever you want, but I also think it is an especially valuable tool for days when you're planning to do structured writing, like drafting a thesis chapter. On such days, it's especially important to clear your head of distractions, but it also comes back to the analogy I made about that sprint runner. Just as she needs to train in between races, she also needs to warm up before her race. Free writing is an excellent way to stretch your writing muscles at the start of a day and to prepare yourself for a period of more focused writing. The ultimate takeaway of this video is that the way to make writing feel easier is to do more of it. I can't promise that this will make the task of writing your thesis completely easy, but making writing something that you do regularly, rather than something you just do as the culmination of other types of academic work, might make it feel less difficult and less daunting. Good luck with writing freely.